Hello, and welcome to another episode of Undiscovered Beasts and Strange Phenomena. Please join our experienced and knowledgeable panel of hosts as we explore the great mysteries of our time: Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts, and unexplained phenomena.
Hello, good evening, and welcome everyone on behalf of Mike and I to our show. Tonight, we're delighted to have somebody who we consider to be a very good friend, our friend Amy Bue, is to talk about Bigfooting and all sorts of a range of other topics, and female Bigfooting. And first of all, I think we should start with you winning an award, Amy. Do you want to say that? Congratulations on that award.
Thank you so much. It's been, about a month, and I'm still kind of in shock about that.
And could you tell our audience what you won your award for?
Sure. I went out to the International Bigfoot Conference out in Kennewick, Washington, and I was walking in the room because I was doing an article for Daniel Perez for the Bigfoot Times, and as I walked into the conference room, Russ Acord announced that I had won the 2018 Dedicated Researcher Award, and I really was in shock. I don't think I've ever quite been that shocked before.
I mean, it's marvelous news, and I'm very glad for you, and I know Mike was too. I mean, we're both very pleased for you. So what I want to do is I want to go through a little bit about your background and your views on a wide range of topics. But first of all, let's do some basics about you. How did you get into Bigfooting, and when did that happen?
Well, I've always been interested in, mysterious things, I guess. When I was younger, I would watch In Search Of and all that, but really hadn't thought about it since I was in junior high school, and my English teacher had me write a paper about something I wasn't sure if I believed in, so I did one on the Loch Ness Monster. And I remember, some of the books, there weren't very many books back then, but some of them had things about Bigfoot, so I would look at it a little bit, but it wasn't really what I was interested in. But in 2012, that really changed because it's a little bit of a long story, but basically I was a passenger in a car in Ohio in Mahoning County that was driving over a bridge, and I saw along the shoreline, looking out at the water, I saw what really looked like a Bigfoot. That's the first thing that popped into my head when I saw this thing, and that's the only thing that it looked like. But it was about a football field away from where the car was at the closest point. So I'm a skeptical type of a person, so I'm still not 100% sure, what it was. But it was the water that it was next to is the city's water supply, and it's illegal to be in there. So that made it very suspect because I'd been over that bridge hundreds, if not thousands of times in my life and never saw even a person in there. And this thing was huge, and it was living because it moved, and it changed my life because here I am talking to you guys. It took me about a year to report that to the BFRO, and the reason I reported it to them was because when you Google Bigfoot, that comes up pretty quickly, like Bigfoot sightings or Bigfoot reports. And so I sent it to them, made some really good friends through the BFRO, and the rest is history. I mean, I had told family members, I had told, some friends about it, but during that year between seeing this creature and reporting it, I had done a lot of reading. I had listened to lots of different podcasts and things like that, and realized that not only were there supposedly Bigfoots in Ohio, but right around that area that I had my sighting as well, there were other sightings.
Do you want to describe a little bit about the creature to our audience, please, Amy?
Sure. Like I said, it was about a football field away, but, when I say that, if you're standing in an end zone, looking at the other end zone, you can tell that person. So, I still have that little bit of a doubt, but it was tall, very big. I have not been able to get in there to set a person where it was. I wish I could. So that I could have something to compare it to. But it was you could tell it was very big, very broad shoulders. It was all one color, and it was holding onto a tree. It was looking out at the water where there were these cement blocks that used to be used to put telephone lines across that body of water. And there were a lot of cormorants that were flying around there. So you could tell it was facing that. And at one point, its whole body kind of moved, and it was more angled toward the freeway where the cars were coming across. And I remembered exactly the day because it was the last time I had seen my father. He died the next weekend. So it was the last time I saw him that I could talk to him. I saw him when he was very, sick, but we had gone to visit him. So I wasn't thinking about Bigfoot. I wasn't, I was just kind of sad sitting there looking out the window.
Of course, yeah.
Definitely nothing like that on my mind. And I saw this thing as we were zooming past, and as we got, centered or right across from it, I just yelled, and I'm like, I think I just saw a Bigfoot. That's what came out of my mouth. That's what it looked like. And that's, I'm familiar with what Bigfoot is supposed to look like from In Search Of and just popular culture, but it didn't occur to me that it was a big person. That's what it looked like. But I didn't believe myself for a while, and I still can't say for sure, but it was very large and it was out of place.
Now, did you get a chance to see its face at all?
No, it was just too far away. It was daytime, but it was getting toward evening. It was just too far away to be able to see its face or anything else. I have made a kind of a phone friendship with the head of security in that area, and the body of water is called Meander Reservoir, and I talked to him, and he's super nice guy, and obviously can't let me in there, and I would never go into somewhere I wasn't supposed to be. And it's against Homeland Security to go in there, so you'd get in a lot of trouble, and definitely you'd be in trouble if you were standing right there alongside the water. So,
yeah. So one of the things I was interested in, it took you a year to process this. I mean, did you play it over in your mind? Were you upset by it, excited by it? What's your feeling?
I was a little bit of both. It was exciting, but it was upsetting because it's something that you saw, you can't deny it, and you prove it. And so, like I said, I would tell a few people about it, and I am not somebody who I really care what people think about me to an extent. I hope people like me and everything, but I'm not. If people want to think I'm crazy, if they want to think that I am just nuts, go ahead. I'll still speak the truth as I know it. And so I wasn't afraid to tell anybody. It was just almost like, to me, there wasn't a point of telling a lot of people because I had no proof. But during that whole year, I studied and studied. I'm a reader. I'm a reading teacher, but I'm also a reader and a writer myself, and I just studied everything I could get my hands on, and it was fascinating to me to see how many other reports there are in Mahoney County, but especially in Columbiana County, which is very close to there, and that's my main research area right now. That's where the Ohio Howl was recorded in 1994. A lot of people are familiar with that. And the more I would know, it was astounding to me how much was going on around there. And the biggest reason I didn't report for a year was I didn't think it was exciting enough. You think about Bigfoot reports, and the ones I like to read, it's like right there, they saw it, walked right in front of them, and I thought, well, they wouldn't want to know about mine because it was from so far away. But finally I realized, and I still realize as an investigator now, that every report, no matter what it is, adds to the story of the area. So I think it's important to share.
Yeah, good, and I agree with you. I mean, just focusing lastly on that just for a minute or so, is there anything that you think you should share with people about your witness report? So, it's the way it walked, the colour of its hair, anything that you think, bearing in mind your role now as a BFRO investigator, what would you tell people about your sighting that you think may help them?
About my personal sighting? Well,
yeah.
Again, my sighting, it was just so far away. Like, I guess I would, the time of day, what the weather was like, what the lighting conditions were like, how far away it was, were there any other witnesses, that kind of thing. Mine, if it had been closer, and what I try to get out of people that I interview is, were there any smells? Was there any type of color variation, any sounds, that kind of thing. But it just didn't really apply to mine. See, I wish it was more exciting.
Because and you didn't really apply to yours because it was too far away. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. No, I have.
It's good.
I have had a second possible sighting since then that just happened this year. That was closer. And this time it was through a FLIR camera, though. And that had a whole different set of circumstances. Still can't be 100% sure, it was in the dark, but it was closer. There were some sounds, there were some smells, there was another witness. So it was a whole different ball game. And that one affected me a lot more, I think, because it was, I was outside with this thing. When you're watching something from a car, you're not really afraid, especially when it's that far away, but being out in the dark and experiencing something, even through a camera, really was a lot more daunting, I guess.
Well, let's jump to that, and then we'll come back to the other to the other questions I had for you, because I want to get a picture of your research and how it works. So, where were you and what happened when you saw something allegedly through the FLIR?
I was at a BFRO expedition, actually, in southern Ohio, and I had been there from Wednesday night, I believe. This was in April. And every night we had gone out looking, and this was Saturday night. It was rainy, and Lester and I had actually packed up our tent and were going to leave, but Charlie Page and David Wickham, who did a phenomenal job, by the way, with that expedition, they asked if I would stay because there was a very small group of just 2 people that wanted to go out with some other groups, and they needed somebody to lead that small group. So I said, sure, I'll do it, for them. And so thankful that I did, because, people always ask me, they're like, oh, it must be so exciting to be a Bigfoot investigator. I love doing it, but normally not much happens, So between 2012 and 2018, there were just maybe a handful of, some rocks being thrown, a log being thrown, which was exciting, but nothing usually happens, So, but I was going to take these people out, and I did, and we were just sitting at a spot that a different team had been in the night before, and basically it was myself and my friend Monica, and she has said before that I could use her name, but we were sitting there, and she and I were the ones that are really into this. My fiance Lester and her husband Jesse were just kind of along, for the ride, making us happy, right? So it was Jesse, though, that was looking through the FLIR, and we were sitting there after hearing some footsteps, kind of a funny smell, and seeing some deer through the FLIR. I guess we saw the deer a little bit later, but hearing some noises. He was sitting on the tailgate of his truck, and he jumped up and was, not shouting, but kind of shouting, what is that? What is that? He sees this thing through the FLIR, gives it to me, and at first I wasn't sure what I was looking at because he had it turned so the heat signature was dark instead of light, and both of us watched for quite a long time. We watched this big thing walking away from us because you could tell that it was getting smaller, and the only thing we could compare it to size-wise at first was it was going down a cut where there were like cell phone towers or electric towers going down this cut, and at the bottom of those towers there were cement blocks again, and they had some residual heat to them. So when we first saw this thing, it was standing right by the second one, so you kind of had a idea of it in relation to that. Well, later on, after it went over a ledge down into where there was a stream down there, we sent Lester down first of all, and when he got to where that...
Poor old Lester.
I know, right? I know. Well, I radioed. I know. I radioed David, and I was like, I want to go after this thing, right? And he's like, no, you're a witness now, not an investigator, which was a really good point. And I wasn't real happy with him. Sorry, David, but he was right to do that. But he's like, we need you to stay there so you can be the witness. And so I said, well, but it was gone by then. But he's game for so he went down. What did you say?
Did you have an opportunity to go back in daylight to see if there's any tracks or any further evidence?
We did the next day. But we sent him down, and we sent another guy, Kevin, who's like 6'4" at least, I think. And when Kevin went down to where we had seen this at first, I've never had this happen in my life, but my knees actually buckled because he looked so small compared to what we had seen. So it frightened me for a while.
Yeah, so you've had those two experiences. Now I want to just cut, and I think that it's good to link them together. I just want to cut back slightly to your beginning, because I'm interested in a couple of points that I've seen you make that I want people to understand. So you had this first experience, and you got in touch with the BFRO, and one of the things I found quite charming was when you described your first camping trip and how you felt. So you're going on your first camping trip, Amy. How are you feeling, and what happened?
Oh, wow. I was terrified. I was going through some personal stuff in my life right then where I wasn't feeling very independent, and I wasn't feeling very sure of myself. And I decided, Bigfoot, I said I need a bumper sticker that said Bigfoot saved my life or something like that, because I feel like my fascination with the subject has pushed me to do things that I never would have done before. So I went to pretty local park, and there were lots of people around. I got the last campsite, so I was not by myself. But to me, it was a big deal. I decided, I'm going to go there and I'm going to camp. So I went, I pitched my tent by myself, and I made my first fire I had ever made by myself, which happened to be just a Duraflame log, but I made it. I got it tonight, so I was excited. And
don't get Mike started about Duraflame logs. He gets very upset about Duraflame logs. But you did it
sorry.
Anyway.
But to me, it was a victory because I made a fire. Yeah. And so
I want people to know this. The reason I want people to know, so I want you to say it warts and all, is because people have to start somewhere, and I like the fact that you've shown you're vulnerable to people. So show that. Don't be afraid to show it. Show it.
Oh, I do all the time, because I admit that there are so many people that have been doing this longer than me that know what they're doing. Like, at this point, I'm a lot better at things, but I would not want to be with me if I was lost in the middle of the forest necessarily. I can do a lot of things, but I can't. I have so much more to learn. But and that same night after I was in my tent by myself, and the funniest part was that I zipped up the tent, but from the inside I had one of those tiny, weeny little padlocks, and I put it through the zipper. I padlocked myself in.
Because the monsters would be deterred by the little padlock, wouldn't they, Amy?
Exactly. Like a murderer couldn't just knife through the tent, but it made me be able to sleep because I was really frightened, So that was the beginning of it all, and now something somewhere along the way clicked in my brain that I am no longer afraid to be out there, and I love it. I find it very peaceful in the woods. I find the dark peaceful. Sometimes I say maybe it clicked too far and maybe I take too many chances, but somebody the other night actually asked me around a campfire if I had a death wish, because I go out into the woods by myself sometimes, and I thought about it a while, and I said, no, I have a life wish, because I am not afraid of it. I've had, I say these things because I don't want a pity party, but I have had cancer twice, and I had another infectious disease called histoplasmosis and another thing in my brain called an AVM. And again, I'm not having a pity party because in a lot of ways I find them to be blessings because I do not waste time chasing things that I want to do. So, but I would rather get killed out in the woods than in a hospital bed, you know? So.
Yeah. These illnesses that you've had, do you think that they have made you more determined as a person? Have they strengthened you? Do you feel differently as a result?
Absolutely. I mean, it almost sounds cliche, but 100%, because there's nothing to lose. You know, I feel like I am on, I don't know if the word would be borrowed time, but I feel like I'm on like the icing on the cake time, you know, and I might live to be 100, who knows? But I feel every day like I want to, there's almost a sense of urgency that I want to do what I want to do, you know, and have some fun. And I have responsibilities. I need to get things done and work, and I really need to do dishes. Sorry, Lester, but I find other things more important, and I'm going to go after them because I have learned. I used to be very, I don't know if I was shy, but I didn't ever want to bother people. But now I go after things, and I figure people can say no, you know, I might as well ask. And a lot of that has to do with my illnesses for sure.
Yeah, and I'd agree. I mean, I've had some formative experiences which certainly shaped my attitude to life, and mine's the same as yours. So I understand that. Now, when you go in camping, how long did it take you to become confident? I know you're very confident in the woods now, but I wanted people to understand that, you know, some people will be out there not confident, and I don't want them to think everybody who starts off doing expedition stuff is a square-jawed hero, because people have to learn.
Right.
So how long did it take you to get to the level where you are now and you do feel confident?
I would say so. I started in 2013, really. Then it would have been 2018 now. I'd say it's just been the last 2 years where I felt confident enough to do things by myself. And I had really great people that taught me a lot of things. Mark Maisel is like my Bigfoot mentor, and he taught me so much, not just about Bigfooting, but about camping and about just being smart about things. I've had a lot of other people that have come alongside me as well, and they kind of gave me that confidence, you know. But then I had to go out on my own and give myself some confidence as well and learn things. And again, I read a lot and I experience a lot. My brother passed away a few years ago, and before he died, we were supposed to go on an expedition down in Kentucky, which I'm actually going on that same one next weekend again. But he was teaching me how to make campfires, you know, like the teepee, the log cabin, all that stuff. So he was, you know, just teaching me all of these things right before he passed away. And I think about that now, and it was like he was getting me ready. You know, I don't know if you believe in that or anything, but I almost feel like that, you know, it was just such a blessing that he taught me so many things. And I have a lot of his old camping equipment. So that's another reason that I do a lot. I go after things that I want to do because I feel like, you know, I'm at the point where, yes, I'm very, very sad that happened, but I'm so happy thinking about his memory, and I just want to do things for both of us.
Yeah, and I think that's a very correct and noble sentiment. When you talk about one of the things I've enjoyed when I've had conversations with you is you've talked about your fallibilities in camping and things you've learned along the way, and you gave some excellent toilet tips last time we spoke. Do you want to share those with people? Yeah, of course.
You know, I happen to think. I know it's funny. I know it is funny, and all of my friends out there are laughing right now, but it is true that I have some awfully good poop stories. It is necessary because everybody poops. I'm a teacher, and there's even a book that says that. So one of my best things I do, and I don't remember anybody ever telling me this, I just kind of did it myself. But when I go out remote camping, and you're going to have to, you know, take your shovel out there, I scope out like a log. I try to find a log that, you know, is secluded if there's other people around. And I try to find one where there's bushes around too, so you have something to hold on to. and say I'm going to be there.
This would be a poo log for you.
Yeah, poo log.
Yeah.
It's easier, to sit there. But, like, for example, when I was out, I had such an honor to go out with Shelley Covington, Montana, out in Washington and this past summer. And I think we were there for 4 days. So I knew we were going to be there for 4 days. And so I dug 7 holes. Like, I pre-dig the holes so that if you have to go out in the middle of the night, you don't have to dig the hole. It's, like, right there. So I did 7 just in case, I ate something bad.
I was going to wonder, why 7? Because that seems quite random. Forgive me.
Just in case, because I was going to be there 4 days, and you never know. So, like, I pre-dig holes. Like, I dig enough for the days I'm going to be there and some extra. So, and it works really well because, there's mountain lions up there and stuff and bears. So you go out in the middle of the night. And, again, when I'm out there, it's a whole different feeling than when I'm in Ohio or Pennsylvania. I go to Pennsylvania a lot, and I've met several black bear out on my excursions in PA, but it's a little different than when you're out in Washington and there's those cougars and mountain lions. And we have them here. They've been seen. I've even seen one in Pennsylvania, but they're just not as frequently seen. So, yeah, those pre-dug poop holes really, those are good. I'm sorry, Mom. I know you're listening. She's been doing
it's good. It's good tips. I mean, it's good tips, but it leads me mentioning Shelley. It leads me nicely on. Do you feel that women in bigfooting and in this community are getting a fair deal? Has it progressed, or do you feel it's sexist? I mean, what's your general view on how women are portrayed in bigfooting and what we can learn for the future?
You know what? I have had nothing but good experiences, so maybe it would be more.
Sure.
Shelley's such a good role model. Mantra. There's so many. Like, I can't even think. My research partner Tina Sams. She is awesome and just gets out there and does everything with me. And I've only felt welcome by all the guys. I have been out researching more with men because there are more men. But, for example, and Mike could attest to this, we just had our event down at Beaver Creek this past weekend, and there were a lot of women that are interested, a lot of women that are out there, and I think it's great. Like, I do a lot with Girl Scouts and 4-H and Boy Scouts as well, but I always, try to encourage the young girls and women to do this because it's a lot of fun, if nothing else. But I have had nothing but support from all I call my Bigfoot brothers. I've never once felt like they thought I couldn't do something because I was a girl, ever.
Good. And you mentioned that it's an interesting point because do you think that there are more women coming into bigfooting recently?
It seems like it to me, at least in Ohio. Although some, like I have some good new friends, Marge and Barb and Teresa and Sandy, and I can just keep going, and Christy, and keep going and going and going, and Amy Starling, and I know I'm forgetting people. I'm sorry, but just lots of them that were like that I just spent a lot of time with this past weekend, and all of them are really cool people, cool ladies, and travel around and are really into this and learning.
That's very encouraging. I agree with you. I tend to see. I think I've seen over the last couple of years more women getting into it, and I'm glad about that. I think it's a very good thing that there are more and more women getting into it, and I'm glad that you're encouraging young people. If you had a tip for female bigfooters, particularly, is there anything that you'd say that they need to be aware of or prepared of any differently to men, or you just say, well, just do the same thing?
I just think it's the same as in general life, I guess. Mary Fabian was also there with me, and I've done some things with her. She's the head of the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project, and both of us have concealed carry licenses, and we have our guns with us, especially if we're out there by ourselves. Oh, Mary Fisher, I forgot about you. You're awesome, too. Anyway,
okay.
I've always been a good shot. I learned how to shoot from my brothers, but I never thought really about carrying a gun with me until a few years ago. I was camping with my daughter, Anna, who you do a great impression of, by the way. We all know
I
that.
love Anna's impression. Yeah. Anna and I have become Facebook friends since then, which I'm very glad about.
Yes.
She puts up some very funny stuff, and it makes me laugh.
She is great. She's awesome. But we were out camping, I can't remember, a few years ago, just her and I, and we were at Beaver Creek State Park, and I always like to get the most remote site out there. And we had been out taking a walk around 2 a.m, and we came back to our campsite, and you have to walk quite a bit from the car to get to your tent, and we were the only people outside of the campground. And we got maybe a third of the way back, and I still to this day don't know why I did this, but I told her, I'm like, Anna, we need to go back to the car. And she was not happy with me because she was tired. And I said, no, I don't feel right. I want to go back to the car. So we did, and we slept in the car until it got light out. So I woke her up, and I said, we can go sleep in the tent now. And when we got back to the tent, there were lots and lots of cigarette butts all around the tent. So I don't know if I smelled it or heard something or saw something, but I mean, I'm not saying every woman has to, have a gun to protect herself, but it's not a bad idea. But at least always trust your gut.
Yeah, trust your instinct. That's very good. Very good advice.
Yeah.
Now, when we think about camping and all of these other things we've talked about there, you've obviously had potential sightings of Bigfoot on 2 occasions. You've done a lot of investigations with the FRO. You're a teacher. You've obviously thought about this question, so I'm going to put it to you. What do you think Bigfoot is, Amy?
Well, what I think Bigfoot, first I always say I don't know what Bigfoot is, obviously, but what I think Bigfoot could be is an undiscovered primate. And I know there's so many different theories, and I am open to listening to anybody's theories. I really am, because I don't know. But I don't see why it couldn't be that, and I have followed that direction during my research and my investigations. It just kind of followed me or pointed me in that direction for many different reasons. But I do think that it could definitely be an undiscovered primate. That's belief, or what I think.
And when you think about one of the questions that I've wrestled with, so I'm just interested in your view. It's a very open question. Is how intelligent do you think it might be? Well,
when I think about, I guess I could tell you a little bit about my project that I'm co-heading up. That might help answer that question a little bit. Is that okay?
That's perfect. Go for it.
Okay. Yeah. So because a lot of my thinking has been formed by this relationship I have. Long story short, and I can't say too much about it, but long story short, I am the co-head of a group called Project Zoo Book. And in that project are people like you, Adam. And the main people are a group of primate zoologists who I met by very happy circumstances. And so we talk a lot. We have conference calls, and we pick each other's brains a lot. And we talk all the time about how similar Sasquatch is to gorillas, to chimps, as far as the sightings go. There are a lot of similarities. And so when you ask me the question about how intelligent do I think they are, when I have met the gorillas and the chimps that heard their stories about how smart they are, I think they're awfully smart. I think I was going to say just a gorilla, although that's not the right way to say it. Gorillas are smarter, I think, than we give them credit for. So I think they're at least that smart. I think
that's true. I think I've seen great apes in the wild, both orangs and gorillas. Would you? One of the things I'm interested in, and I'm not expecting you to give a concrete answer because you can't. It's impossible. Mm-hmm. But would you think that Bigfoot is more intelligent than a great ape, or less, or closer to humans? What do you think?
I don't see a reason why, personally, it couldn't have the same intelligence as a great ape. Now, I'm basing that off of my own limited interactions with possible creatures, but I'm also basing it off of a lot of books, a lot of investigations that I've done. I all the time being well aware that there are also reports where it seems like they're way more intelligent than that and almost more human-like. So I can't discount that. Feel like they definitely could still be a primate. Whether it's you have to go through and explain things maybe in a little bit of a different way than somebody who was reporting it explained. And I'm trying to think of a good example, but when I do talk to my friends, these zoologists and other researchers that are involved in this project that we're doing, they see it from a totally different viewpoint. So, for example, you'll have some reports where people will say that the Bigfoot was kind of grimacing at them, like, showing their teeth in aggression. And so I've learned that that's something that great apes do a lot when they're stressed, and where somebody might say, oh, it looked like they were, trying to scare them away. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe there was a different reason. And so what we're trying to do is look at it from those, from that viewpoint, and all the while knowing, at least I know, that we could be incorrect. But we're trying to say, could that fit into a primate, some kind of primate behavior? And is that, yes, it can. But like you said, I don't really know for sure. But so far, everything that I have experienced and read definitely could fit into primate behavior. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yeah, you answered it. You answered it very well. Now,
okay.
One of the questions that we often get put in this Bigfoot community, Bigfoot researchers, is there's a clear division, I think, between people who have a view that Bigfoot has some sort of magical or mystic powers, for want of a better word, and people who think that it's basically a primate of some description, a primate or an intelligent primate or hominid, whatever you want to say.
Right.
Where do you lie? Where do you lie in relation to this? What's your view?
Well, I'll tell you what. I do think, just from my own brain takes me toward it being a primate without those kinds of magical or mystical qualities. But what I was going to say is, I know some people who I would trust with my life, and they have a very different viewpoint of it because of things that they've experienced. That's something that I will admit I get stymied on a little bit, because I know that they're not lying to me, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on there, but it's something that I have to deal with just as a human being. Because even if I was 100% saying, oh, I don't think that could be true, I would always be kind to people. I'm not going to make fun of what they think or what they say they've experienced. But when you talk to somebody who is a very intelligent person, and they are an honest person, and they tell you that they've had something that really seems very inexplainable, I'm not sure what to do with that, and I'll admit it. But what I say, I've been asked to speak at a few paranormal conferences, and both times I was like, well, I don't really think Bigfoot's paranormal, so do you really want me to speak there? And they're like, yeah, And then what I say is that I really believe that some of the things that we think are paranormal might just be things that we don't know how to explain yet with science. We just don't have words to explain it. But I 100% admit that I'm not sure what to do with some people I've talked to, some witnesses I've talked to that are very credible people, and I don't know how it could be true, if that makes sense to you.
No, it does. I think very credible people can be wrong, and it doesn't negate from the fact that it doesn't negate from the fact from their innate credibility, and also they can want things to happen. I mean, let me explain very quickly, because this show isn't about my views, it's about
Sure.
yours.
No, sure.
But you
I'd
know,
like to hear it.
in law, when I was doing that, and I was cross-examining people for 10 years. You could have two people who both witnessed an event, and they could have very different accounts of what they actually saw.
Right.
I don't know, a man attacking another, assaulting somebody. Now, both of them could be recollecting those things to the best of their ability. It doesn't make one a liar, yeah, and the other one not. It's just they put their own interpretation on those events, and they can just be. One could be just more accurate than the other, or one could have different interpretations than the other. I think your point about paranormal not necessarily being things that we can't explain in science is well made. You know, if I took you back to the Battle of Hastings in 1066 and gave you a cigarette lighter, the people there who would be just as intelligent as you would consider it magic. So I think that's the point. The problem I have is when, you know, on a personal point of view, and I'll just say this briefly, is when some sort of quasi-religion comes around it and people think they're special and enchanted because they have a magical relationship with a Bigfoot at the bottom of their garden. You see what I mean?
No, I think, absolutely. I think that, there's, and without mentioning names, I think that can be very dangerous, you know, and I don't think that helps our quest too much.
No,
I would agree with you there.
No, and when we talk about Bigfooting generally, have you found people generally to be good with you, or have you had conflict? And if so, what advice would you give to people on how to deal with conflict?
With conflict in Bigfooting?
Yeah, or generally.
I have no idea what you're talking about. No. No, I'm kidding. I would just tell people, like, if there was... I'm being very tactful
with the question, Amy, giving you an opportunity to give you a nice, wide answer.
You know me better than that. But what I would say is I would caution anybody who is new to the field of Bigfooting that just like in anything, in any hobby, in any job you might have, in anything, that there's human nature involved. And so wherever there's human nature involved, there are fallible people. And so you're going to get in arguments with people. You're going to disagree with people. You're going to not like some people. They're not going to like you. And I feel like my skin has grown like almost like the Grinch, but like very, 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 the Grinch's heart grew 4 sizes or whatever. Like my thin skin has had to grow that many sizes to get thicker because I just I've come across some drama, I guess I'll put it that way. And but I think that is anywhere. I'm trying to be drama free here, but I think that can happen in anything you do, in any hobby that you might take. And you just got to have some thick skin, stick to your guns, be honest, be kind to people, but don't let anybody push you around. You know, I always say people can believe anything they want to about me. Somebody said this to me, and I know it's a quote too, but it's not really my business what people think about me, and I just move on and I try to be a good person.
Good stuff. Well, let's think about some positive moments. I just wanted an opportunity for you to say that.
Yeah.
So when you think about some of your favourite moments over the last few years, what springs to mind?
My favorite moments? Well, man, I will tell you, one of my favorite moments was meeting you, Adam. Because I'm not even kidding. Like, you're somebody I knew like before Bigfoot. I knew of you and have admired you for so long. I love your sense of adventure. I love that you did it on your own, especially to begin with. You were determined. I love that you're a teacher. And I just remember walking into Creature Weekend last year, and you saw me across the room, and you're like, Amy Bue, how are you? How's Lester? How's his farting problem? Because I had said something on Facebook about Lester farting, and you remembered it, and I was like,
yeah.
I
have you stitches. I love stuff like that. Yeah, I love. Well, Lester's going to be sat there going, oh no, everyone's everyone's talking about me farting.
Yes, we have the same sense of humor, but fucked me over because Adam Davis knew about Lester and his farting, and he knew my name. So that was a really cool moment. So that was a lot of fun. I enjoy so much just getting out into the woods. I've done a lot of different things, especially over the last couple of years, doing some speaking and different things like that, which have all been fun. But just getting out in the woods with people is my favorite. Last week, I spoke to a local Audubon society, and I'll tell you, I wrote to you about it even. I had such a great time with them, and I was very nervous because it was the first group of people I had talked to that were not into Bigfoot. And I'm like, man, this could go really wrong. But the gentleman that asked me to speak there had come to a library talk I gave, and he's like, man, you really surprised me. I thought this was going to be all crazy stuff, and you surprised me that there's a lot of science behind the research going on out there for Bigfoot. So he convinced his boss to let me speak to them, and it was great. We had such a good rapport, and we had good questions, and I loved that. But I think Mike would agree that probably, honestly, the most fun thing I've done, oh, man, there's so many. That's a hard question. I got to go out to Beachfoot. I got to go to talk about for hours. But it was just this past weekend with our inaugural Creekfoot event that Tina and I threw, and it was beyond amazing. And I'm not saying that because we started it. It was all the people that were there, including Mike Richburg, your own Mike Richburg. But it was an amazing time. And all of us, we've been talking, the people that were there, all we've been talking about is we want to go back like now. But
it was absolutely fantastic. It was incredible, Adam. Oh, we got to get you there, Adam. That's the first thing you need to know about it. We got to figure out how to get you back on the East Coast over here because you're going to like this. Man, I tell you what, Amy's not going to, she's a little humble, and she's not going to tell just how good it was, but it was the most fantastic thing ever, really. It was kind of a bit of a non-conference in a way, in that there wasn't really a rigid itinerary where there was a lot of, formal presentations and that sort of thing. Really, it was more of a family reunion type thing than anything to me. It was like a family reunion with all the cool cousins and stuff you don't get to see, all the time. It was just so much fun. All the camaraderie and all the exchange of different research ideas, and man, it was just so wonderful getting to meet everybody too. I met so many cool new people, and I got to meet a bunch of people that I hardly ever get to see or haven't even met. I know on Facebook or knew through the grapevine, but finally got to meet in person. But that the whole thing was just so incredibly well done. Amy and Tina did such a great job of putting everything together. The facility there was very nice, and they were very supportive, and they made everything between the crew there, Scott and Ronnie, and of course Amy and Tina made it such an epic event. I don't even know where to begin, but we did actually get out in the field a little bit here and there, and I heard personally with a small group with Amy was present there also, a couple of very nice return wood knocks. So based on the history of that area and the ecological and geological environmental factors and things like that, which I did take time to assess while I was there, it's a really super interesting area, and there's some Bigfoot research definitely to be done right there on premises. But, the main thing, and I know I'm getting long-winded because I'm so excited here, the main thing is
go for it.
All the great...
I like your passion, man. I'm with you. Go for it.
Yeah, me too.
All the great times that we had, around, there's a big fire ring. That's one of my favorite things. Everybody was in one group. It wasn't like an event where there were a bunch of people broken off into different little cliques doing their own thing or whatever. A lot of times there was always that coming together, either whether it be a potluck dinner or around the fire ring or whatever, and that's where all the good storytelling and the, information exchange, different investigative techniques and all that. And like Amy was mentioned before, everybody didn't have the same views there. And that's all good. Everybody's welcome there. And, I'm kind of like you and Amy. I'm on the more like flesh and blood science end of the equation. But some of the folks there that experience things that are difficult to explain with our current knowledge, of scientific understanding, if you will. But the main thing that made the whole thing so great, Adam, was the people. And that started with Amy and Tina. And I can't say enough about how eager I am to get right back up there. Just like Amy said, everybody that went is just ready to get right back up there. I didn't want to leave.
Yeah, I don't think any of us wanted to leave. Thanks, Mike. It's going to make me cry over here.
You couldn't get a better endorsement than that, really. He's very, very, very...
I know. And everything that he's saying is what Tina and I wanted. We wanted it to be like a family reunion. We found this place. You were asking before, like, what advice I would give to people in Bigfooting, and I would tell people just be a nice person. Like, be a nice person, answer people's questions, try to be helpful, because you never know. I mean, I'm not saying it to do that, to get something from it, but both of the most incredible things I've had happen to me this past couple of years was because I just reached out to people, and that's how I found my zoologist for my Project Zoo book, and that's how I found this campground that we had Creekfoot at, and it was just amazing. We found this place. They wanted to do a bunch of renovations here. It's an older camp, and they were like, do you think some Bigfooters might want to come down there and use it? So I went down there with Tina and our friend Jamie King, and we right away knew this was going to be special, and we right away knew what we wanted is just exactly what Mike said, that no matter what you think Bigfoot is, no matter what you have experienced, or whether you're even right or wrong about that, like you said, Adam, that you'd feel welcome, because to me, more important than Bigfoot are people, and I just wanted everyone to feel like we were a big family there. And I thought it was amazing. We had so much fun. Everybody pulled together, and we are already planning 2 for next year because it was just so great. We're going to do one in the spring.
I want to go ahead and interject here again, if I can interrupt, and I want to make sure we get this in there tonight. I want to talk about how much good was done. And what I mean by that is not all the fellowship and all the exchange of information and everything I'm so excited about, but that is a children's camp that is operated by an organization there this in the community, and a lot of kids benefit from that camp. And Amy and Tina, and I'm sure, they're not quick to brag on themselves, but there was some money raised, and there was enough money raised to allow the camp to get a new roof on the Beaver Lodge there, which is a very important historical cabin for a lot of different reasons, and a very special structure if you ever have a chance to visit there. So I want to go ahead and make sure everybody knows that Amy and Tina really did a lot, and everybody that attended went out of their way to be very generous in many ways to make sure that that new roof is going to happen along, and with the extra money from even beyond that and the money that's going to be raised in the future, I'm sure, there's going to be a lot of improvement forthcoming to that facility, which helps an awful lot of kids. And that's something that's special to many of us, including all you guys, both of you. And I think it's just so admirable, and something that's really touched me is like the generosity of the people that were there, and what a good, just a great thing that's going to come out of that. Because I stayed in that building. I slept there 2 nights. and it does need a new roof, but that's a really cool building. So I'm glad that that's going to be handled, and everybody, the caretakers were thrilled to death. Everybody there was so happy. It was such an emotional thing that we knew, we raised enough money to help that happen. And that's just the kind of person Amy is, of course, always giving and making things good for other folks. And that's one reason we love her so much. And children are important, and not just in general, but specifically in cryptozoology. And there were some young people there at the event, and that should not be overlooked. And one person that I was really impressed with was our young friend Jacob. I'm not going to mention his last name, but I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about, Amy.
Yes.
What a bright young man, and a great kid, and an up-and-comer, as they say. But I just want to go ahead and hog up the airwaves one time to brag on Amy a little bit, and Tina, about raising that money and making that happen, because that's something that really spoke to me, and it's something that's going to help an awful lot of kids.
Well, thank you so much. It was the people that were there, because we tried to make it as inexpensive as possible so anybody could go, and anything above, that people wanted to donate. Tina and Denise were in there flipping pancakes, and people gave and gave and gave. And so, I just give it back to all the attendees. They were, we invited people, but we wanted it to be no ego. Everybody was the same. Everybody's on the level playing field, and that's what happened. And people responded to that, and now they're getting a new roof on that really cool building and going to help a lot of kids, like you said. So thank you, Mike, for your kind words, but you were one of the generous people that helped with that.
All right, so we haven't got a lot of time, guys. So if we just to be really clear, so if we you talk about there being 2 events next year, how do people join them and when are they? Let's just be clear on that.
Well, there is one called Creekfoot Spring 2019. So if they would search for that, you can look on my page, Amy Bue, and I have shared it. But if they search for that, they can let us know if they're interested. There is a limit. But if you put going or interested, then we will definitely consider you to be invited. We're not trying to be elitist with invitations. There's a space limit. But we really want to know who would be interested. For the fall one, we're thinking about keeping it a little bit smaller for the people that came this year. But again, tell us if you're interested, because if we can squeeze you in, we will squeeze you in. We want to have that. And let me just say really quickly, the whole inspiration for the idea for Creekfoot was from Todd Neese and Diane Neese from their Beachfoot event, because we were a mini version of it with their blessing, but it was based on theirs because it's a cool thing. It's not a conference. It's just a lot of people getting together, having fun, sharing research, eating good food, and fellowshipping. So, shout out to them, because they're the ones that gave us the idea.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. So, just so everyone knows, just to be very specific, those people who don't know Amy's surname is spelled B-U-E. Okay, so when she says Amy Bue, B-U-E. Just a bit of teachy spelling we have to get in here, seeing as I'm talking to a teacher. So very quickly, because we're really out of time. What's next for you, Amy? What are you going to be doing in the next couple of months?
Man, I'm doing some speaking engagements. I am honored because a friend of mine has asked to join him in the spring to go out with some Navajo Native American tribe members and go out looking for Bigfoot with them, which is incredibly exciting. And I'm hoping to make it out to Sasquatch Summit, but that all depends. I just found out that I got my job back, so I might be able to make it out there. Yeah, thank you. So just lots of different things, and it's just really exciting, really exciting.
Brilliant. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show, both to Mike and I. You're our very dear friend, and we care about you very deeply. Thanks very much.
I love you both. Thank you. This was a bucket list thing, too, so thank you.
It's been totally our pleasure. And thank you ever so much. And, I'm sure we'll speak to you again, Amy. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was our show for the evening, The Fabulous Amy. Thank you to Amy on behalf of Mike and I, and we'll see you again very shortly with a new episode. Thanks very much. Good evening. God bless you and take care.